This is one of my favorite topics. So I love to talk on leadership and, in particular, how to build a self-managing team. Right now, I've talked a lot about how to build a self-running company, right? Everybody wants a self-running company. They don't know exactly what it is or what it looks like, but everybody knows they want one. But you can't build a self-running company without a self-managing team. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm not really talking about the people in the field. I'm talking about the people in the office, your leadership team. So today's topic is building a self-managing team. And these are just some of the ways that will help you stop creating dependencies on the people in your office on you. So I wrote down, and there's lots of other things that we share in CBF around building a self-managing team. But tonight, just real quick to go live, I just wrote down 4 ways to help them stop depending on you, because you can't have a self-managing team if they're always dependent upon you. It's not possible. And so I'm not saying you're ready to walk away from your business, but you need to be in the process always of building a self-managing team so that when the time comes and you want to walk away, or you want to take a 2-week uninterrupted vacation, or you need to take a 90-day leave of absence. Like, what would happen to your company if you had to leave for 90 days? For most people, it would collapse. For most people, it would go backwards. It would head into decline very quickly. Sales would get lower, employee morale would drop, and the actual number of employees that you have will drop and sometimes disappear. So you can never create a self-managing company until you start by creating a self-managing team. So let's talk about building a self-managing team. And I just wrote 4 ways to help them stop depending on you. Obviously, there are other things that I will share with you at a later date, but these top 4 things became top of mind for me as I was thinking through what are the things that we must do as leaders to actually develop a self-managing team. Let me give you an example. If you don't know me, I'm Debbie Sardone, and I own one of the largest maid services in the country. Our CBF Elite Group are in the multiple $1-million maid services, meaning they specifically generate all that revenue through regular recurring home cleaning, not gigantic $250,000 a year commercial accounts. We're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of regular repeat home cleaning customers, weekly, bi-weekly, and monthly customers. And so if you don't know me, my business did $4.2 million last year. Our goal this year is $4.5 million. But the best part is, so revenue doesn't mean anything if you are chained to your desk. Revenue really isn't that important. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't mean anything, because it usually is indicative of, your hard work, your success, and hopefully your paycheck. But high revenue is less important if it creates golden handcuffs for you and your business, meaning you can't take a 2-week uninterrupted vacation. Meaning if your business didn't have you for 3 months, maybe you had a serious illness or a crisis you had to deal with, your business would slip backwards. And so I do have a 100% self-running company. In other words, we have a self-managing team. It is led by our second in command, our COO, but I don't step into my business to work in the operations at all, and I haven't for more than a dozen years. So it's 100% self-running. We do $4.2 million. We did $4.2 million last year. We have over 60 employees, and our goal for this year is $4.5 million. So how is that possible? Because everybody knows the maid service industry is very people-driven. It is very people-focused. It's culture and people all the way, right? And so how is it possible that you build a self-running company? Starts with a self-managing team. So here are the 4 ways that I wrote down just for today to help them stop depending on you. These are 4 things I want to share with you today. So number 1, and this is really important, and I see a lot of cleaning business owners get this backwards. Number 1, stop promoting, start pre-training. So if you have somebody that works for you and they're an A player, possibly in the field, they're like your best cleaner, and you think, man, I need an office manager, and you promote them to the office, and then you promote them to their failure, right? This happens so often. They're an A player in the field. They are crushing it. They are successful. They are your number one top employee. And then you put them in the office where you expect them to lead and manage people and processes and systems, and they crash and burn. So my advice here, you want to create that self-managing team, is stop just promoting. Or you have somebody in your office that was your admin assistant, now she's your scheduler, and you have an opening for an office manager. Maybe your office manager left, or maybe it's time for you to hire your first office manager. And they work in your office, they're very diligent, they're great at scheduling, or they're great at sales, whatever it is you had them doing. And they feel you owe it to them to promote them to office manager because they've been there the longest. Maybe they've worked for you for 3 or 4 years. And so they feel like because they have all this experience, they know your processes and systems, that they should be considered for office manager. You don't promote somebody until they've proven that they can do it. Now, it is different when you hire an outsider and you're hiring specifically for a role and a title, but I'm talking about promoting. Stop promoting and start pre-training. If you have someone on your team, whether they're in the field and you're thinking about promoting them and putting them in a leadership position, or they're in your office already and they want to be promoted, or you're thinking about promoting them, start by pre-training first. Most companies promote someone and then hope they become a leader, right? Most companies promote someone and then hope they become a leader. You already know you're a leader, but you don't know if they're a leader yet. So my philosophy is have them put in the reps before you give them the promotion, the title, and the raise. So here's what I would say about when you think someone could be a good leader, but you don't know it for sure. Don't promote them first. So on a tactical basis, start creating a leadership bench, right? Or a leadership bench list. This list could be in your head, or it could be shared with somebody in your office, but you want to identify 1 or 2 people that you think could potentially be promoted to a leadership role. And then give them little short-term projects, responsibilities, or tasks and see how they handle it. It's like pre-training. So maybe you're going to go out of town for a week and you're not ready to promote them to be your office manager, but you could put them in charge for a single week. They handle any crises. The staff goes to them to solve problems, and they don't call you unless, the place is on fire. Give them a short project. You didn't make them the office manager. You didn't hand them a promotion and a title because you needed an office manager while you were gone, but you gave them a project or a task. You said, for 1 week, I'm going to put you in charge this time. Here are the things that I want to make sure you do and you monitor and you maintain control over. And if you absolutely can't solve a problem, don't know what to do, feel free to call me. So you let them try before you buy. And I'd say have them put in the reps, right? If this person is still not leading, right? They're not leading in any way, whether they're in the field or they're in the office and they're not a leader, don't make them a leader and hope they don't fail. It's the biggest mistake people make. When I've had people come to me in the past that said, Debbie, I really want a leadership role. I've been here a long time, and usually they name the leadership role they want. I let them know that as a leader, I will be measuring their performance based on the leadership role instead of based on the contributor role that they've always had in the past. Because they're an A player as a contributor, as an individual contributor. But in the past, I have not seen them step up as a leadership. And if I were to put you in a role that you weren't ready for, and I measured your performance against your leadership abilities, there's a good chance you would fail and you would lose your job after all these years. And so oftentimes they will even back off and say, you're right, I'm not ready. So if you have somebody that either thinks they're ready for a leadership role and you don't, or you're not sure, start assigning them leadership books to read and just see if they actually read them. Ask them to tell you what they learned, right? And then begin to assign them very small leadership projects and see how they do. Give them guidance. So try before you buy, have them put in the reps before you give them a title and a promotion. Number two, give leaders a scorecard. Give people who are in charge, who are on your leadership team, make sure you have given them a very specific set of KPIs or metrics or a scorecard or scoreboard, whatever you want to call it. People call it different things. It's all the same thing. KPIs is probably the most common use of this phrase. So if you have a leader you're trying to groom to be a better leader, or you're grooming an individual in your office to become a leader, make sure they have a set of KPIs that they manage, that they are responsible for, a set of key metrics, right? And you don't have to remind them to fulfill, you don't have to remind them to reach those KPIs and those goals, that they are automatically hitting them like clockwork. Without a scoreboard, people don't know what's required of them. So when you have leaders, every leader in your company, like we have several leaders in our company with the size we are, they have at least 3 to 5 very measurable, proven numbers that they're responsible for. If they can't hit their numbers as a producer, they won't be able to hit their numbers as a leader. So think of things like, if you've challenged them with leading your retention program. We have a program in our company called 90 Days to Wow, and it's how you hire, onboard, and retain the newest people hired for 90 days, right? There should be a number tied to that. Let's say your employee attrition, your churn rate is currently 2 a month quit, or 3 a month quit, or 6 a month if you're a bigger company, or 5 a month, or whatever, right? A measurable team retention metric for that person who you're giving them a project to see if they can improve the retention rate with some strong guidelines to show them how, would be, move us from 10% churn rate of our employees every month to 7%, right? Give them a number to measure their own performance against, and that you can measure them against. Another area would be quality scores, customer reviews, right? Give them a number. Let's say you've been trying to get to 1,000 Google reviews for months and it hasn't happened. Give them a number. I really want to see us add 25 5-star Google reviews over the next 90 days, and let's see how they do, right? Are they aggressively inviting your happy customers that have been with you a long time to go post a review? Are they sending them a text to the review link to make it easy? Or do you have to remind them every day, hey, have you asked anybody if they'd give us a review? So these are areas that you can measure their performance on before you give them a raise and change their title. And then if this is resonating with you, something lets me know I'm on the right track, that these are the things that you need to build into your systems for building that self-managing team. Here's another example. If you have a good sales team member, they're really good. They have been closing the proper number of leads to close. They do a great job following up to turn them into a retained recurring customer. So they're a great sales producer, but they really want more of a management role, and you're ready to add 2 more salespeople. Test them out. Give them an opportunity to train the new salesperson. Teach them how to follow your sales system, and see if they teach them step by step how to follow your sales system. This is absolutely vital, because for them to be a good sales manager, they have to be following the process themselves, not just winging it and making it up. And for them to be able to be a good sales manager, they have to show and demonstrate that they follow the process to a T. They don't modify it. They don't wing it. They have to maintain their close rate to demonstrate to the new salespeople that they're closing jobs. And they have to be able to teach the new salesperson on the team how to follow the new sales process, right? So test them out before you make them the official sales manager. Give them a set of metrics to follow so that they are measuring the people they've trained and measuring their performance. And do they do that? Do they get end of day reports from the new salespeople, or do you have to remind them all the time to do that? That's the difference between a producer and a manager, somebody who's managing the process and owning the results. Number 3, teach leaders how to think. Teach leaders how to think. So here's the problem. Most of us have built a business where we may have some leaders, but the company is still dependent on me. And if you want a self-managing team, you have to wean them off being dependent on you. So teach everybody on your team how to think for themselves. And I'm mostly talking about your leadership team right now, but really these things can be applied to even cleaners in the field, trainers in the field, deep clean specialists in the field. And so if you're teaching your leaders how to think, what you're doing is you're teaching them how to think instead of telling them what to do, right? And so we've all started out by teaching people what to do, right? And then reminding them what to do, and then checking to see if they did what they were supposed to do, right? But as you're developing your team, your leadership team, you need to move further and further away from just giving them instructions to follow and start learning how to solve problems. That's what leadership does. Leaders solve problems. Producers follow instructions. There's a big difference. So here's a tactic that I want you to think about and start practicing and start using. And I shared this point number 3 with our elite program today, our elite members today. Teach a simple filtering process when you're trying to help people learn how to think for themselves. So when a problem appears, usually you're like, oh, here's what I would do, right? That's a mistake if you hope to develop a self-managing team. If you want to cultivate leadership instead of followship, right? And so when a problem appears, a really good leader, a strong leader, will ask these filtering questions, okay? First, hey, what's the root cause of the problem? Because they're bringing you a problem and they want you to solve it. Ask them. So think about 1 or 2 or maybe 3 possible root causes for this problem. They may not come up with the number 1 real root cause, but if you give them things to think about and you tell them to go think about 2 to 3 possible root causes, they will come back with a list. Then, once you have the list, their theory of what the root cause is, ask them, what are the metrics to prove your theory? Okay, you think it's either this, this, or this. What's the math that proves it? What are the metrics that prove your theory? They go back and they do the math. They pull the statistics. They look at the raw data. How many job applicants did we have at the beginning of the month? And how many job applicants actually booked a job interview this month or last month? How many of those that booked an interview actually showed up for the interview? And how many job offers did we make, right? That's what I'm talking about. Do the math to help them solve the problem so that you're not always solving the problem for them. The math will help them pinpoint their theory on which one of 2 or 3 possible root causes are actually the real root cause. So make them produce the math to show their theory. And what are the possible 2 or maybe 3 solutions to solving this problem that you would recommend? Now, you'll notice I haven't given the answer yet, and I probably know the answer. That's our problem, is as owners, we know too much. As owners, we have all the answers. And so we can't help ourselves because most of the time, it's easier to give them the answer than to teach them how to develop the answer. It's easier to give them the answer than to teach them how to think. So as leaders, we got to stop taking the easy way out, or we will never build a self-managing team and we will never own a self-running business. And so have them come up with 2, maybe 3 possible solutions. And 2 is actually ideal. Give me 2 solutions you think will solve this problem. So you haven't solved the problem for them yet. They come back with 2 solutions, and oftentimes they come back with, never mind, I figured it out, we got this. And you didn't give them the answer. You just showed them how to get the answer. You just showed them how to think differently about every problem that arises, right? It's like, what are the root causes of the problem? I'm not sure. We'll write 2 or 3 possibilities. What's the math that supports that? The metrics, the proof, right? To prove your theory. And what are a couple of possible solutions? And then ask them, what would happen if we do nothing? Now, most people don't ask this question because not every problem should be solved. Not every problem is important enough to drop everything and solve it now, right? So oftentimes people bring you a problem, and sure, it's a problem, but how high on the priority list is that problem right now? It's kind of like You can't even find good workers, but you think the number one problem to solve is we need to spend weeks and weeks or months and months trying to create a handbook, an employee handbook. Well, I'm not saying that's not a problem to solve. Of course, you need an employee handbook eventually, but is it the number one problem to solve today? So the question to ask the leader you're trying to develop is, what would happen if we do nothing? And it'll be interesting, the answers they come up with. Now, more than likely, you know the answer, but you want them to arrive at the answer. And what solution aligns with our values and our standards? So oftentimes when pressed with a crisis or a problem, our values and our standards begin to slip. We lower our standards on who we hire because we're desperate and we're shorthanded. Or we tolerate really toxic behavior in our staff, people who are C players who we should have gotten rid of, right? So what solutions to this problem aligns with our values and our standards? Now they bring solutions instead of problems to you. When you teach them this simple point 3. And then, okay, number 4, and again, it's not limited to these 4 points, but number 4, give leaders real ownership. I mean, if you are going to hand them a higher level of responsibility, and again, you shouldn't just promote people hoping they don't fail. You just hand them a new level of responsibility before the new title, before the raise, before the promotion, right? Give leaders real ownership. In other words, don't micromanage. Don't keep looking over their shoulder and say, oh, I would have done this instead. Oh, you should have done this, not that, right? So give the leaders real ownership. If leaders can't influence the results, they will stop caring, right? Help them get their own results instead of you stepping in, micromanaging, and getting the results for them, but they did half of it, right? So think about how you would help them take ownership and how you give ownership and how you let go of ownership. And I'm not talking about abdicating your responsibility. You still have to know that they're fulfilling the role properly. You need to oversee it. You need to guide. You need to coach. You need to mentor. But think about what you could hand off and let them own it. Let them own the results. So this would be an example. Somebody that really feels like they want to fulfill the role of your recruitment manager. So we have a full-time recruiter whose sole job is to hire and retain the new hires for 90 days. So we have our onboarding 90 days to wow program, but we also have our recruiting, our interviewing, our screening, and job offers, right? Making offers. And so if you're trying to see if this person can handle this level of responsibility, give them the training they need, give them the numbers that you're going to hold them accountable to, monitor, coach, and mentor, and see how they do. It doesn't mean you make them full-time at that. Maybe you show them, you teach them, they watch you interview a few people, and then you watch them interview the next candidate. You see how they do, right? So let them own it. Don't interrupt them while they're interviewing a candidate. Just give them feedback after they're done. Another example would be, and that's a pretty high-level job. So, most companies aren't big enough to really deal with that, but improving the quality in the field, right? So what could you hand off to somebody who's already in the field that would help improve the quality in the field? If you're getting too many one-star reviews, you're getting too many complaints. Could you hand that off to somebody who's already in the field and give them a metric for them to hit, an NPS score for your clients of 9 and above, or whatever? Client retention is another project you can give a leader in your office. It's like, all right, what can we do to salvage the clients who are dropping our service? And here's some tactics, here's some strategies, here's some scripts and talking points to try to save a client who's dropping us, right? So client retention. Sales conversion is always easy. If somebody is like, I want to be a sales rep instead of an admin assistant, it's like, all right, well, let me give them the training. Let me see how they own it. Let me see how closely they follow the training that I gave them. I mean, we have a turnkey training system. And if a VA overseas or a person in-house is going to be good at sales, they have to follow our very structured sales system. How'd they do? Did they follow it or did they wing it? Were they undisciplined? Did they let the phones go to voicemail because they were over here wrapping presents? Aren't you glad you didn't promote them to sales rep? So ownership in the responsibility you've given them builds pride, it builds accountability, and it helps build growth. Again, don't abdicate. Don't give them a new role or a new responsibility and walk away and watch them fail. You've got to coach them. You've got to mentor them. You have to inspect what you expect. And if they're not cutting it, then just say, you're not ready. I don't want to promote you to failure. And then lastly, as you are working with building a self-managing team, as you are working on delegating better and holding people accountable and having the right metrics and KPIs to see if they're making progress or if they're not making progress, I want to remind you of one non-negotiable for leaders, and that is praise in public, criticize in private. Praise in public, criticize in private. So you never have a team meeting and say, all right, we got some problems here that needs to be addressed. You know, your sales closing rate is really low. I don't know what happened, but you need to get back on top. And your hiring is very sluggish. It's very hit and miss. You're taking risks. You're hiring people I wouldn't have hired. You're not following through with doing the background checks and the reference checks. You never do that in public. Like, you never do that as a group or as a team. You know, we do what we call level 10 meetings every Tuesday. It's a 90-minute, very structured, agenda-driven meeting. And this is where they report their own numbers. So they're reporting their own results. You're not calling anybody out. They're reporting their numbers. They're reporting if their close rate for sales was 30% or 50%, right? Our scheduler is reporting if we average 300 billable hours a day or we fell below that, right? It's one of her metrics. This is not the time when you meet as a group in your meetings. You never criticize in public. You criticize one-on-one, privately. And I don't even really believe in the word criticism. If you're the right kind of leader, you're not really criticizing, you're coaching. You should be receiving the end of day reports every day. It shouldn't be a shock to you that a month has gone by and people aren't hitting their numbers. That's your fault. You're the one not leading. You should be receiving end of day reports so that you know my sales team didn't get to any of their leads today, right? So the buck stops with me. I'm the leader. Not literally in my company, it's my COO, but for most of you, the buck stops with you. And so when your team is underperforming, when your team isn't leading correctly, in most cases, it's our own fault. We have abdicated our responsibility instead of properly delegated, coached, and mentored. So I want you to remember this. This is the most important thing I can say today. Praise in public, criticize in private. No exceptions, no group resets unless you are admitting that the reset is on you, that you haven't been the kind of leader that you set out to be. Unless you're reprimanding yourself, you never reprimand in public. You take that individually as one-on-one conversations. You ask questions. You don't accuse. You say, hey, what happened? You know, we had 100 leads last month and you only followed up on 30 of them. Tell me what's going on. And out of the 30 you quoted, you only closed 10. So your close rate is down to 30%. It used to be 40 or 50%. Tell me what's going on. What can I do to support you better? What am I doing to fail you? Because I know you can close at a higher rate than this. In other words, when you do criticize in private, you're asking questions. You are not making accusations. If your words are, you're not meeting your numbers, you've approached it from the wrong direction. In all likelihood, as their leader, you haven't done your part. You haven't kept up with coaching and mentoring them. So, praise in public, criticize in private, and really turn criticism into coaching. As a good leader, as an effective leader, you're almost never criticizing. You are always coaching. Tell me what happened. Tell me why you weren't able to get to all your leads today. Tell me what you think is the reason your close rate has dropped. I want to help you. It's my job to help you succeed. Do you see how that's different? And they actually oftentimes will come up with their own solutions, or they will admit, I've been distracted. I have a crisis going on at home. I've been on my cell phone a lot, right? So either they'll admit what's going on, or the two of you will figure out the real problem. And then it's your job as a leader to say, okay, I will be more supportive. I will raise my marketing budget, or whatever it is that you need to do. So those are 4 things that I think will help you build a self-managing team. They're certainly not everything, but they're some of the things that I wrote down that I do believe will help you. Thanks for joining me. Thanks, everyone. If you liked what you just learned, imagine what happens with the complete CBF system working in your residential cleaning business every day. If you'd like to learn more or talk to us about your residential cleaning business, scan the QR code on your screen right now and complete a short application to see if we are a good fit for helping you. If you're ready to stop struggling and start building a residential cleaning business that runs without you, following a proven system is only the first part. Getting practical implementation help every day is the next part to making your journey easier and faster. Now, caution, this isn't for everyone. We personally review each application to make sure CBF is the right fit for where you are in your journey. Don't wait. Those who take immediate action get immediate results. Scan the QR code or click the link in the description now, and let's talk about transforming your residential cleaning business.